Welcome to Lakers News Fan Report, your premier source for the latest updates, breaking rumors, and exclusive insider analysis on our beloved Los Angeles Lakers. What I'm about to discuss with you today involves a name that every single Lakers fan knows intimately. A player whose legacy in purple and gold is complicated, controversial, and yet undeniably significant in our franchise's recent history. There's been a seismic shift happening across the league that could potentially bring back a familiar face to the Staples Center, Crypto, Arena. And the implications of this possibility are absolutely massive for our championship aspirations this season and beyond. Before I reveal exactly who we're talking about and what the latest developments are, I need to walk you through the context of how we arrived at this moment and why the entire basketball world is suddenly buzzing about a potential reunion that seemed absolutely impossible just a few months ago. The NBA landscape is constantly shifting, and front office decisions can alter the trajectory of multiple franchises in the span of a single afternoon. We've seen blockbuster trades reshape championship windows. We've witnessed superstar movements that nobody predicted. And we've experienced the heartbreak of watching beloved players leave only to struggle elsewhere. The business side of basketball is ruthless, unforgiving, and often leaves fans wondering what could have been if circumstances had been different. But every once in a while, the basketball gods present an opportunity for redemption, for a second chance, for a story that seemed finished to potentially have another chapter written. Let me take you back to earlier this year, specifically February, when the basketball world was absolutely stunned by one of the most shocking trades in recent memory. The Dallas Mavericks, in a move that left analysts, fans, and insiders completely bewildered, executed a blockbuster trade that sent their franchise cornerstone, their young superstar, their future Hall of Famer Luka Doncic, to the Los Angeles Lakers in exchange for Anthony Davis. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Mavericks traded Luka Doncic, arguably a top 5 player in the entire league, for Anthony Davis, who at that point was dealing with injury concerns and questions about his long-term durability. The trade was orchestrated under the leadership of Mavericks general manager Nico Harrison, and the basketball community immediately questioned the logic, the strategy, and the long-term thinking behind such a monumental decision. Fast forward to now, and the landscape has changed dramatically once again. Nico Harrison has been fired by the Dallas Mavericks organization. The experiment failed spectacularly, and the consequences of that February trade have come back to haunt the franchise in ways that even the most pessimistic critics couldn't have fully predicted. Anthony Davis, since arriving in Dallas, has played in only 14 of 44 games. Let that sink in for a moment. 14 out of 44 games. That's barely over 30% availability, which is absolutely catastrophic for a team that gave up a generational talent to acquire him. The injury concerns that followed Davis throughout portions of his career have manifested in the worst possible way in Dallas, leaving the Mavericks in a position where they're now desperately looking to move on from a player they surrendered everything to obtain. And this is where things get incredibly interesting for us as Lakers fans. According to league insider Zach Lowe, one of the most respected voices in basketball journalism, there are going to be Anthony Davis trade talks of serious substance happening in the near future. Lowe specifically stated that whether these discussions result in an actual deal is impossible to predict with certainty, but he would bet on yes, meaning he believes there's a strong likelihood that Davis will be on the move once again. Multiple NBA teams are reportedly showing renewed interest in acquiring Davis now that the Mavericks have made it clear they're open to moving him. And among those teams potentially interested in bringing him back is none other than the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, before we get too excited or too skeptical, we need to have an honest, comprehensive discussion about what a potential Anthony Davis return would actually mean for this franchise. This isn't a simple question with a straightforward answer. There are layers of complexity here that involve salary cap logistics, roster construction philosophy, long-term planning, injury risk assessment, and the emotional component of bringing back a player whose departure was so shocking in the first place. Let's break down all of these elements systematically so we can truly understand whether this potential reunion makes sense for the Lakers organization and for Lakers fans who have been through so much uncertainty in recent years. First, let's address the elephant in the room, which is Anthony Davis's injury history and current health status. Davis is now 32 years old, which in NBA terms for a big man with his playing style and injury history is a significant concern. Throughout his 14-year career, he's been one of the most talented big men the league has ever seen when healthy. His combination of size, skill, defensive versatility, shot-blocking ability, and offensive repertoire is genuinely elite. When Anthony Davis is operating at full capacity, he's capable of being a top 10 player in the entire NBA, someone who can anchor a championship defense while also providing 25 to 30 points per game on efficient shooting. The problem, and it's a massive problem, is the when healthy qualifier that has to accompany every discussion about his value and impact. The injuries have been relentless and varied throughout his career. We're talking about shoulder issues, knee problems, back concerns, ankle injuries, and various other ailments that have caused him to miss significant time season after season. During his time with the Lakers before the trade, we experienced this frustration firsthand. There were stretches where AD looked absolutely unstoppable, where he was dominating on both ends of the floor and looking like the best two-way player in basketball. And then inevitably, an injury would occur. He'd miss 2 weeks or a month or longer, and the team's championship aspirations would be put on hold while we waited for his return. It was a cycle that repeated itself with painful regularity, and it's a major reason why the Lakers were reportedly willing to consider moving him when the Luka Doncic opportunity presented itself. His time in Dallas has only amplified these concerns exponentially. Playing in just 14 of 44 games is not just disappointing, it's franchise-alteringly catastrophic. That level of unavailability makes it nearly impossible to build any sort of consistent team chemistry, to develop reliable offensive sets, or to establish defensive schemes that depend on his presence. The Mavericks essentially gave up a player who was available for virtually every game and performing at an MVP caliber level in exchange for someone who's been unavailable more often than he's been on the court. It's a disaster of historic proportions, and it's why Nico Harrison is no longer employed by the organization. So the natural question becomes, why would the Lakers want to bring back a player with this injury profile? What's changed that would make this a worthwhile gamble for our franchise? And these are absolutely legitimate questions that deserve thoughtful answers rather than emotional reactions. The case for bringing back Anthony Davis rests on several key factors that we need to examine objectively. First, there's the familiarity factor. Davis spent significant time with the Lakers organization before the trade. He knows the system. He knows the coaching staff. He understands the expectations, and he has existing relationships with players who are still on the roster. That familiarity can accelerate his integration back into the team and potentially reduce the adjustment period that typically comes with major trades. You wouldn't be learning a completely new system or trying to figure out how to fit alongside unfamiliar teammates. There's value in that continuity, even if it's continuity that was interrupted by his time in Dallas. Second, there's the talent ceiling argument. When healthy, and I know we keep coming back to that qualifier, Anthony Davis is still one of the most impactful players in basketball. His defensive versatility alone is incredibly valuable in today's NBA, where teams need to be able to switch across multiple positions and defend various offensive schemes. His ability to protect the rim while also stepping out to defend on the perimeter is a rare combination that very few players possess. Offensively, he can score from all three levels. He's an efficient mid-range shooter. He can finish at the rim with either hand, and he's developed a respectable three-point shot that forces defenses to respect his range. If the Lakers' medical staff believes they can manage his health better than Dallas did, if they think they have protocols and treatment plans that can keep him on the court more consistently, then the upside of having that level of talent available is genuinely significant. Third, there's the championship window consideration. LeBron James isn't getting any younger, and our window to compete for championships with him on the roster closing rapidly. We need to maximize every season we have left with LeBron in purple and gold, and that might require taking calculated risks on high-upside players even if they come with significant injury concerns. A healthy Anthony Davis paired with LeBron James is a combination that has already proven it can win championships, as we saw during the bubble season when they led us to our 17th title. Recapturing that magic, even if it's only for stretches of the season, could be enough to make a deep playoff run if everything aligns properly. Now, let's talk about the practical realities of actually executing a trade to bring Anthony Davis back to Los Angeles. This is where things get incredibly complicated from a salary cap and roster construction standpoint. The most logical framework for a potential deal would involve the Mavericks offering Anthony Davis in exchange for Austin Reaves plus additional salary to make the money work under NBA rules. Austin Reaves has emerged as one of the best young players in the league, someone who's playing at an all-star level and is 5 years younger than Davis while being significantly more durable and available. From the Lakers' perspective, trading Reaves for Davis would be an enormous gamble that prioritizes short-term championship hopes over long-term sustainability. The Lakers front office would need to seriously consider whether they're willing to give up a young, healthy, ascending player who's under team control for multiple years in exchange for an older, injury-prone player whose best basketball might already be behind him. It's the classic win now versus build for the future dilemma that front offices face constantly, and there's no objectively correct answer. It depends entirely on how the organization values their current championship window with LeBron versus their post-LeBron future, and reasonable people can disagree about which path makes more sense. If the Lakers wanted to construct a different trade package that doesn't include Austin Reaves, they could potentially build something around their 2031 first-round pick, multiple pick swaps, and a combination of contracts like Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, and Jared Vanderbilt. This type of package will preserve the core of LeBron, Reaves, and Davis while sacrificing future draft capital and role players. However, the logistics of such a deal are incredibly messy. The Mavericks would need to clear multiple roster spots in the middle of the season to accommodate all the incoming players, which is difficult to do without making additional moves. Both teams are also operating under salary cap apron restrictions that severely limit their flexibility in matching salaries, making it challenging to construct a deal that satisfies NBA rules while also making basketball sense for both sides. There's also the question of whether Dallas would even be interested in the types of assets the Lakers could realistically offer. The Mavericks are in a position where they essentially need to rebuild after the catastrophic Luka Doncic trade, and they're going to want premium draft capital and young players with upside. The Lakers' 2031 first-round pick has some value, but it's so far in the future that its actual worth is difficult to assess. The role players the Lakers could include are solid contributors, but they're not the type of foundational pieces that a rebuilding team typically targets. Dallas might prefer to engage with other teams that can offer better packages, which would effectively eliminate the Lakers from serious contention for Davis. Fan reaction to the possibility of an Anthony Davis return has been mixed, which is completely understandable given the complicated history and the legitimate concerns about his health. Social media has been flooded with opinions ranging from enthusiastic support to complete rejection of the idea. Some fans are pointing out that Davis should be traded back to LA for pennies, given how poorly things have worked out in Dallas. Others are questioning why any team would make a move for a player who can't stay on the court and is day-to-day more often than he's available. There's skepticism about his trade value, with many arguing that it's at the lowest point of his entire 14-year career. And honestly, a lot of that skepticism is warranted and based on legitimate concerns rather than just negativity for its own sake. But here's what I keep coming back to in my own analysis of this situation. Anthony Davis, despite all the injury problems and despite all the games missed, is still only 32 years old. He still possesses elite physical tools that can't be taught or replicated easily. He still has the basketball IQ and skill set that made him a perennial all-star and all-NBA selection. If there's any organization that might be able to maximize his remaining potential while managing his health concerns, it could be the Lakers, who have experience working with him and who have a vested interest in getting the most out of whatever time he is left at an elite level. The risk is enormous. There's no denying that. But the potential reward, if everything breaks right, is another legitimate championship contender built around LeBron. And we also need to consider what the alternative options are for the Lakers if they don't pursue Davis. The trade market is always but impact players who can genuinely move the needle for championship contenders are incredibly rare and expensive to acquire. The Lakers have limited trade assets after years of win-now moves, and their draft capital has been depleted. If they're serious about maximizing LeBron's remaining year, they might not have many better options available than taking a calculated gamble on a Davis reunion, assuming the price isn't prohibitively expensive in terms of giving up core pieces like Austin Reeves. The next few weeks and months are going to be absolutely critical in determining whether this potential reunion actually materializes or if it remains nothing more than speculation and rumor. Trade discussions in the NBA can evolve rapidly, with situations changing based on team performance, injury development, and shifting organizational priorities. The Lakers front office is going to need to carefully weigh all the factors we discuss. Consult with their medical staff about Davis's health prognosis, evaluate the costs in terms of assets surrendered, and ultimately make a decision about whether this move aligns with their championship timeline. My final analysis on this entire situation is that an Anthony Davis return to the Lakers would be a high-risk, high-reward proposition that could either accelerate our championship timeline or set us back significantly if the injury problems continue. The fit makes sense from a basketball standpoint when he's healthy. The familiarity with the organization is valuable, and the desperation to maximize LeBron's remaining elite years provides urgency for making bold moves. However, the injury concerns are legitimate and can't be dismissed. The cost in terms of assets could be steep, and there's a real possibility that we'd be trading for a player whose best basketball is already behind him. It's a decision that requires careful consideration of both short-term championship aspirations and long-term franchise health. Now I want to hear directly from you, Lakers Nation. Do you want to see Anthony Davis back in purple and gold? Would you be willing to trade Austin Reeves to make it happen? Do you think our medical staff could keep him healthier than Dallas did? What's your level of confidence that he could stay on the court long enough to make a meaningful championship run with LeBron? Drop all your thoughts, opinions, and analysis in the comments section below, because I genuinely want to know how our community feels about this potential franchise-altering move. If you want to stay completely updated on every development in this Anthony Davis situation and all other Lakers news, rumors, and analysis, you absolutely need to subscribe to Lakers News Fan Report right now. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a breaking update, and smash that like button if you found this deep dive valuable. We're here every single day bringing you the most comprehensive Lakers coverage anywhere on YouTube, and I appreciate every single one of you for being part of this incredible community. Let's keep the conversation going. Lakers Nation, let's get it.